it's hard to not put John Wooden as the greatest coach of all time with 10 national championships. But Coach K is right there. Right there.
Absolutely. One of those battles came the year after the Final Four. Tech lost the game, but it was on national television, and Kenny Anderson froze Bobby Hurley. People will watch that highlight my age and will not be too impressed by it, but back then that was like the craziest move anyone had ever seen.
Yeah.
And he had 25 points. That was the year Duke won the title. They were a great team, but 2 years later,
we should have won that game. We lost it at the end. I remember Dick Vitale almost coming out of his seat when Kenny made that move. But what bothered me, because it was such a great game, but we blew it at the end, and I hated to lose that game.
Tell me about the Barry twins. Well, I was going to call them the Barry twins. I have no idea if they're actually twins, but tell me about. Did you know Rick? How were you able to get the brothers to come?
I knew Rick when I was assistant coach for Lute Olson in the World Games, and Rick was doing the color. And so Rick wanted, he asked, could I give him a scouting report on our opponent every time? And I asked Coach Olson, could I do that? He said, sure, you could do that. So Rick would come over. He was a tennis player. I like to play tennis. He was much better than me, but I could play with him. And so we would either play tennis first or do the scouting report first and then play tennis. And that's how I came to know him. I then went to the Final Four, and he was being honored. It was a silver anniversary or something. And I saw Rick, and he said to me, by the way, you're not looking for a shooting guard, are you? And I said, Rick, that's exactly what I'm looking for. We lost out on the kid we wanted. He said, well, I got one for you. I said, who's that? He said, my son, John. And Rick was divorced at the time. And so I called John. He gave me his number. I called him. I said, John, look, I've been tired. I'm tired of recruiting. I'm worn out. We lost a really good shooter. And I believe enough what your dad has told me about you that you can play for us. So I'm going to offer you a scholarship over the phone. And it's all yours if you want it. We'll take you. He said, Coach, can I at least visit the school? I said, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. You got to visit. He visited. He signed with us. He was a junior college player. He started out at a Division I school, but then went to a junior college. His grades were fine, excellent student. And, he just brought a lot of maturity to us. He was a big surprise. He came in ready to play.
You also had another
because
transfer.
of him, my assistant Kevin Canwell got to know his new stepfather, and he told us about Drew. So I sent Kevin out to California, and sure enough, he said, Bobby, this kid can play. We might have to redshirt him, but he can play. So we did that. We redshirted him, and he became a star. Unbelievable.
Why interrupted you?
I'll make this real quick. I coached Rick got married, remarried, had another son, and I signed him when I was coaching college in Charleston. I didn't get a chance to coach him because he was redshirting his freshman year, and that's the year I got sick, and I retired from coaching. But his son Canyon Barry had a really good career at college at Charleston. Then he transferred to Florida, where he almost won a national championship.
So you were responsible for starting three Barry kids' college careers. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What I interrupted you for, and I apologize. What I interrupted you for was you had another transfer come in. You got Matt Geiger from Auburn.
That's right. I didn't know who he was. He walked in my office. I said, so he's him and his parents. And I said something. I said, excuse me, I got to do something real quick. I'll be right back. And I ran into Kevin Cantwell's office. I said, Kevin, who's that big guy in my office? He said he's wants to transfer from Auburn. And he's good. He's really good. I said he's really tall, too. So I went back in, the great family from Clearwater, Florida. And we offered him a scholarship. And we took him. And he gave us He gave us a true center right away.
So 91, you made the second round, lost to Ohio State, and that was in Dayton, so basically a home game for them. In 92, one of two Georgia Tech players to grace the cover of Sports Illustrated is Malcolm Mackey. And he graced the other, well, I'd say one of three. The other two was when y'all were ranked number 1 in 85, they had Price and Sally on the cover, debuting what were then the new uniforms for the year. But then back to 92, a surprising run to the Sweet 16. I think y'all were a 7 seed. And of course, what is remembered most was what people always associate with Al McGuire losing his mind. They call it the holy mackerel shot. When James Forrest hit that, I believe it was a 3. Whatever it was just a miraculous moment because there was less
it was ridiculous.
There was less than a second left.
We wanted Barry. We wanted to get the ball to Barry for one last chance, but I think there was like 2 or 3 seconds left in the game, and we had to go to full court. And Barry threw a pass. I think we wanted to. He threw a pass that got intercepted and knocked out of bounds by them. Now it's like 1 point something second. And Matt Geiger, this is important, Matt Geiger at 7 foot takes the ball out of bounds. And I wanted him to get the ball to Barry. And nobody was open. I think they had 2 guys on Barry. And James Forrest was just standing there and on the foul line. And he decided to pop out. And that guy saw him. He threw the ball to him. He turned around and just let it go at the same time and made the first 3 of his career. Unbelievable.
I mean, that's... Now, you would think that would be the signature moment of any NCAA tournament, but then a week later, Christian Laettner did his thing and sent Duke to their second Final Four in that great Duke-Kentucky game. But that was still just that's what March Madness is all about, plays like that.
Exactly.
A year later, 92-93, you get Travis Best in. And another good year, majored, I believe, your 9th straight NCAA tournament. You beat Duke, and you finally got a win over a number 1 team in the country. And Duke had won like 20-something in a row.
Right.
And that game had, I believe, still an all-time attendance record in terms of an on-campus game for Tech. 10,125 people jammed into the Coliseum for that one.
Wow. That's amazing. But, the Duke-Georgia Tech rivalry was really something at that time. We got James Forrest also. Travis Best, a great kid. Another total package kid. James was a great athlete. And, we've had some kids you might have left out. Scott Petway was a great transfer from junior college. And some of these junior college kids really stepped in. It was tough on them academically because of Georgia Tech academics. But they loved being in the ACC, and so they worked their butts off. And it was great. And Travis Best was, again, one of the best ever.
Just a great point guard, and he could also shoot the ball as well.
Yeah.
So you have a up and down 93 year. You finish 8-8 in the conference.
Right.
At this point, Florida State's in, so they're playing 16 games at this point. You were on the bubble, but not a lot of people expected you to go far. And then you win the ACC tournament, and 85, somewhat expected. 90, you finished 3rd in the league, so I don't know if you were the favorite to win the tournament, but still wasn't completely a shock. 93, that was surprising.
It was. Travis was hot. But the key guy that year was James Forrest in the tournament. And I had to suspend him for the first 5 minutes of the first game for a rule violation. And so he sat for the first 5 minutes in the first game. I forget who that was against.
Duke.
Duke. It was against Duke. But then he came in the second half. What did I say? I said 5 minutes? Yeah, I sat him for the first 5 minutes. But then he came in right away, and he was ready to go. He just had a different look on him. He was either mad at me or mad at something. And he decided to take over. I couldn't believe it. After the game, I told him, I said, you should break your rule. I should hold you off on the bench for the first 5 minutes of every game. But then he came back the second game. Who was that against?
Clemson.
And he dominated that game. And then against North Carolina in the final, he was tremendous. He had a guard there, 7-footer.
Eric Montross.
And he contested his shot. He just put on a show. And, Drew Barry was great, and Travis in the backcourt, handling the ball. And that was really a great win. Unfortunately, we got beat by the first round in the NCAA. And we had to go out to Arizona to play my good friend Ben Jobe, who at the time was at Southern University. And that was a big upset, but a great win for him.
Yeah, I was about to say, there must have been because he was your assistant early on, and that must have been, personal for both sides. And then also, wasn't Bobby Phills on that Southern team?
Yep, sure was.
Late Bobby Phills.
Heck of a player. Yeah, Ben Jobe and I were both also assistant at South Carolina for Frank McGuire.
Wow, so that you must have been happy for him, but that must have been
very happy.
That must have been disappointing. People have always associated that loss with what happened afterwards. There had rumblings started. Had you already been contacted by your alma mater at that point?
Not by the athletic director, by a friend of mine, a teammate of mine, Dennis Powell. And Dennis wanted to know if I was interested or not. And I told him that, Dennis, I am interested because it's my alma mater. But there's a good chance I can't come. Things are good here right now. And so you tell the AD that I'm interested, but he better have a person ready if I say no. And then we left it at that. I never spoke to the athletic director. After the game, after we finally lost, I had to sit down and make a decision, and I decided not to go. And after I decided not to go, I waited a few days, and all of a sudden I changed my mind. It was one of the roughest periods of my life. I changed my mind. The kids were off campus. It was spring break. And I decided it was time. I got over there, saw all my friends, saw Coach McGuire, and I knew right away I made a mistake. It had nothing to do with South Carolina. No, I love South Carolina.
That must have been tough.
I love them. And I understand, them getting very upset at me. I would have felt the same way. But I felt like I was Judas, and everything I preached about, I left. I went against. There was no loyalty there like it should have been. So I went back. Homer Rice took me back. And South Carolina hired a great coach by the name of Eddie Fogler.
Yeah, and wasn't
George
George Felton
on to do great things?
Wasn't George Felton the guy you would have replaced?
Excuse me?
Wasn't George Felton the guy that you would have replaced at South Carolina had you stayed?
No, absolutely not. I would never have done that.
No, but didn't George end up coaching there though?
Yes, Coach George Felton coached at South Carolina, and then came somebody else.
Oh, it was Steve Newton, right?
Newton, right? Yeah, I would never interview for the South Carolina job if George was head coach.
Okay, so then, and I wasn't trying to do that to do any baggage or anything. I just knew he had coached there, so I was out of curiosity.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, but no, I would have never done that.
So then came 2 weird years. 94, you missed the tournament for the first time in nearly a decade, but you had 2 wins over North Carolina, and they were number 1 both times. So you
Yeah.
sweep the number one team in the country, but you miss the tournament. Weird.
Yeah, I
year.
remember that. I remember the bad things sometimes more than the good things. We should have gotten in, but Manhattan had lost in their championship game, and they had a great year. And so the NCAA went with Manhattan over us. And guess what Manhattan did the first round?
Do they win?
They win, and the NCAA looks like geniuses. But I thought those 2 wins over North Carolina would get us in. Fran Fischello was the head coach of Manhattan at the time.
The next year, another winning year, 18-12, 8-8. You actually had a better conference record than in '94. But again, you were on the bubble when you didn't get in.
Yeah. Now, that might be the year. I think it was the year before. I turned down the NIT.
Yeah, you lost to Siena in '94 in the NIT, and then in '95, I think that was the year you turned it down.
I turned it down. Yeah, I hated to do that, but I was mad. I was pissed off at the NCAA, and the NCAA owned the NIT, and so I had to call my New York buddies and tell them I'm not coming. The team doesn't want to come, and I don't want to come.
But
and they got a little mad at me. But I was determined to prove a point.
Well, you proved
we
a point.
We were spoiled. Instead of being, accepting the NIT, we were spoiled. But like you said, we had those 2 great wins over North Carolina. And I thought we could have snuck in there. I'm mad at Fran Fischello for not winning the championship. Had they won their championship league game, we both would have got in.
And then I think '95, St. John's was the last team in, and then y'all got out. Or '94 was the year you're talking about Manhattan. '95, I think St. John's or some Big East team, I think. But then you have Harpering already in '95, and then tell me about recruiting Stephon Marbury.
Well, first let's talk about Harpering. He was another total package. The problem with Matt was he played 3 sports: baseball, football, and basketball. And when I first saw him play, he was just he just finished summer baseball and fall baseball. He's coming out of fall football. And I went over to watch him play. My son went to Marist High School. And Matt was just, he was not in basketball condition. And so he was going to go football. He was going to go play football somewhere. He was actually on a visit to Wisconsin, and he went to a basketball game. And he said, I could play with these guys. So he told his high school coach, I'm not going to play football. I'm going to play basketball. And that just changed everything. So things opened up. I had to go back in and admit I was an idiot. And I explained to him, I didn't realize that you would come off the baseball and the football. So thanks to him and his family, they forgave me, and he signed with us. Then of course, New York, I heard about Stephon Marbury. And Stephon loved Kenny Anderson. And he loved Travis Best. He loved Mark Price. And he loved the point guards that we had, Craig Neal. And so we were known as Point Guard University. And Travis Best was a senior. So he knew he could step right in for Travis. And that gave us the edge. Syracuse they were the favorite, but they had a starting point guard coming back, who's a junior. And that changed everything. And he wanted to come in right away. I did not know he wanted to be a one and done at that time. But that was his game plan, to be a one and done. I finally realized that later on. He started out a little tough. He could score anytime on anybody. And we had to teach him to get the other players involved, which he did. He eventually did. We got off to a bad start, and he turned us around. Him and Drew Barry had a good man-to-man meeting, and they said, Drew told him, he said, look, I got the ball last year to Travis Best, and I'll get the ball to you. So it worked out. And all of a sudden, we go into ACC play, and we're a different team. And then he realized he realized, I told him that Kenny Anderson's greatest game was when he scored 6 points against North Carolina, and he had 19 assists. I said, that's where you got to be at times. There can be times where you can score 30 points. That's fine. But you got to be a team player first. And he bought in, and we became a team. And it was fun to watch.
You made it to the Sweet 16. You almost won another ACC title, but Tim Duncan, Dave Odom's great Wake Forest team ended up beating you. But you won the ACC regular season title and had another good year. I want to, before I get into the last 4 years of your tenure at Tech, I want to ask you about some people and just what memories you have of those prospective people. First name that comes to mind is Al Serrato. Great voice.
He was the voice of the Yellow Jackets. Just a great human being. Great human being. He started every football game by saying, toe meets ball. Toe meets leather. And he was a real legend and just a remarkable guy who loved Georgia Tech. And we became great friends. And I always remember Al.
Did you ever interact with? I know he was a professor there for a time. Did you ever interact with Wack Hyder?
Absolutely. When I got the job, Coach Hyder came down to see me, and he told me he'd like for me to start an alumni game, bring back all the former players. And I said, Coach, I would love to do that, but I got to go recruiting. I don't have the time. Would you do it for me? And I said, my secretary, Lillian Rose, I said, she'll give you whatever you need, Coach. Whatever you need to pull it off, you got it. And he said, okay, I'll do that. And he brought back the alumni game, bringing back former players. It was great, fantastic. Great human being, heck of a coach, and just like a preacher. He's like a preacher. Just a beautiful person.
Did you ever meet his football contemporary? Did you ever meet Bobby Dodd?
I did. I got to know Coach Dodd when I first got the job. He was retired. And I had heard so much about him. And he was coming in the building one day, and I stopped him. I said, Coach, I'm the new basketball coach. He said, I know who you are, Cremins. And, boy, what I loved about Bobby Dodd was his players loved him. He was a giant in the game of football. You know, he was a Heisman winner. He was everything. And I had the real pleasure of knowing him.
So then after 96, that was your last tournament appearance. What happened in 97? Because you were first in the ACC and you went 13-3, and then immediately, were there injuries, or was Marbury leaving that big of a hole to fill? Because of course,
yeah,
I talked about
Marbury
earlier.
leaving, but we didn't. I lacked the foresight to see that. We could have picked up a really good point guard, but you know, I thought Marbury might stay in that a year, and I screwed that up. And then we brought in a good player from New York, but he just couldn't fill Marbury's shoes. And who can? Yeah. And so that started to drop. And then, you know, I got a little tired. Things just started to change. And we did everything we could to turn it around. We brought in a kid from Florida, 7-footer Alvin Jones. We got a transfer from Indiana. Another great kid.
Jason
Collier. We had, you know, we had a chance. What really hurt us, we brought in a freshman, Deion Glover.
Oh, man. He got hurt. Yeah, you're talking about the 98, 99 year.
First day of practice and out for the year.
Oh, man.
And that was a tough one.
He ended up going to the NBA, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I wanted him to stay, but he was afraid he might get injured again. And I told him, I said, if you get injured again, I don't know how I'm going to feel. I'm not going to be able to make it. So he went, but another great kid. And, you know, I just wanted him to stay another year, work on his shooting. And I thought he'd be a great player. But he did well for himself.
Well, after the '97 season, you did rebound slightly. You made the NIT. You could have made the NCAA tournament. I think you all lost in 2 overtimes to North Carolina. Great game.
We lost a tough overtime game to NC State that year, and you're right. The overtime loss to North Carolina. We were a game short of going back to the big dance, and that would have turned everything around.
Yeah, and then, of course, the next year, the injury with Glover happens, and so you had 2 NIT appearances, but, what goes up must come down, and I wouldn't say it came down hard. I mean, you were nowhere near as bad. You left Tech a way better place than you found it.
I wanted to make sure I did that.
Yeah.
And, Glover had a great freshman year for us. People forget that because, he left after his sophomore year. He never played his sophomore year. Some people think Glover never played. He played 1 year, and he had a heck of a year. He was not ACC Rookie of the Year, but I think he was runner-up.
Yeah, and it was you had a bunch of those though in the '80s.
Yeah,
you churned out, I want to say, like 4 or 5 in a row, or maybe 5 of 6.
Yeah, something like that. It was great
because you had.
But those things happen. Things happen like that, and Homer Rice retired. That factored in, and so I realized it might be time to go. Gary Williams was making Maryland a monster. Dave Odom was making Wake Forest the same. Coach K was just ridiculous. North Carolina went through a few bumps.
Yeah.
But when Roy Williams came back, I never coached against Roy, and I coached against him when he was at Kansas. But,
you coached it. Well, we'll get to it later, but you did coach against him when he was at Carolina, just not at Tech.
That's right.
And you beat him, I think, too, at Charleston.
We beat him in Charleston. He gave me a 2-for-1. 2 in Chapel Hill, 1 in Charleston. They beat us up good one time in Chapel Hill. We upset them in Charleston, and then they beat us in a close game, the 3rd game in Chapel Hill.
Well, your last year, you talked about, you thought it was time to go. So I was watching, just this popped up on my feed. I had no idea. I had no intentions of finding this. But the Michigan State-Florida game from 2000, that national title game, popped up on my YouTube recommendation feed. And I'm like, I've never watched that before because I call myself a sports nerd. I'm not a guy, I played t-ball and I played basketball up until middle school, but I've never been athletic I've always been a fanatic. And so I'm like, this is a game I haven't watched before. And I'm like, okay, let's see this. And so it was the Florida one where Florida lost and Izzo got his title. And so then the post-game coverage comes on, and I see a familiar guy sitting at the desk with Greg Gumbel. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea he did TV.
Yeah.
And so you did television, and then...
I did television, radio. My game plan was to take 1 or 2 years off, no more. But I came down here to Hilton Head, fell in love with the low country of South Carolina, and I took 6 years off. And that was a mistake. I should have went back sooner. But thankfully, I got an opportunity when the Charleston job opened up. And Greg Marshall took the job, and then he pulled a Bobby Cremins. He went back to
Winthrop, right?
Winthrop. And they called me again. My best friend in Charleston, Corky Carnival, called me again and said, are you interested? He said, I told him, I'm ready to go. Well, they almost hired Buzz Peterson.
Wow.
But I got in there, and they hired me.
Well, you weren't the immediate successor, but people do not realize Carlson Charleston has a very rich basketball history, especially for a mid-major.
Yeah, because of John Kress.
Yes, and he was there for so long, and then Tom Harrion was there in between him and you, and he did a decent job, and you did a solid job there. You never made the big dance, but I don't know if you had one losing record there. But other than that, you had a very solid tenure there.
Yeah, we had a great, just like Georgia Tech. We had to fight through the first year, and we did that. And then we had a great recruiting class. Great kid named Andrew Godlock, Jeremy Simmons, Donovan Monroe. Antoine Wiggins. And it was just a great recruiting class. We've also added a junior college kid to that class. And we started to turn things around. I lost 3 times, Daniel, in the finals. The Southern Conference Championship.
Yeah.
2 to Mike Young at Wofford and 1 to John Shoemate at Chattanooga. The one that hurt the most was the last one because we were the best team. And with 10 games to go, our center, Jeremy Simmons, got injured. And I couldn't believe it when the doctor said, it's an old injury, and we got to fix it. He's out for the season. And these things happen. Injuries happen. Deion Glover happened. And Jeremy Simmons, because we had a team that could make a run in the NCAA tournament. We had some unique players. Drew Godlock became the all-time leading scorer at College of Charleston. We had a young recruit by the name of Tony White, whose father was a great player at Tennessee. And he weighed about 130 pounds, and he became a very good player for us. And we got a couple more. We had some more excellent recruiting years, but not winning the championship really burned me out.
Well,
I wanted so bad for the College of Charleston to get back to the NCAA. Coach Kress was a good friend of mine. He was assistant coach for Lou Carnesecca at St. John's, and Lou Carnesecca played baseball for Frank McGuire at St. John's. So I was very familiar with Coach Kress, a great guy, great coach. And you're right, he's the father of College of Charleston basketball.
Well, the next year you had your health force you into retirement, but that also birthed someone else's coaching career because it gave the reins to your assistant, Mark Bington. I probably butchered the pronunciation of his last name. But
Mark Byington.
Byington, okay. And he has had all that success at JP. That basically was the start of his head coaching career.
The person we just hired, Scott Cross.
Yeah.
I do not know him, but he has a great reputation. I checked with some of my friends coaching, and they say he is an outstanding basketball coach, and he is really a good guy. So I talked to him on the phone a couple of times, but I think he's got a chance to rebuild Tech.
Well, he's doing a good job. I was gonna ask you about Cross, and so you answered one of my questions there. I was gonna ask you if you've talked to him after the Stoudemire tenure, which was just rocky, and some people like me will blame Stoudemire. It is apparent that he didn't have enough NIL funds to really get things going. What do you think about this new era? Do you think you would have succeeded? Do you just not? Are you happy that you didn't coach in this era? What do you think about it?
Well, I would find out what everybody in my league is getting NIL, and I would expect Georgia Tech to, if not match them, at least get close to them, so I have a chance. If they said no, we can't do that, I might think about going somewhere else because you have no chance. The coaches getting fired these days are coaches with low NILs or coaches with high NILs that don't produce. The NIL is a nightmare. It didn't turn out to be what it meant to be.
Yes.
It sounded great, players getting money, but we never knew it would become a bargain, highest bidding type contest.
It's like Pandora's box has been opened.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's a major problem. I'm waiting to see some solutions, but I hear things, but I see, we should get rid of that where they can transfer any year, any time.
Yep.
Go back to the 1 year transfer. At least I think the NCAA might have the power to do that. But then the kid might sue them.
Yeah.
And they'll lose the lawsuit.
I'll add on this though. When you came, was there a situation where when you arrived on campus and saw the facilities or something like that where you realized, oh, this is really bad?
No, I was too dumb. I was too eager. And, losing an ACC championship as my senior year, that motivated me. And I just loved the ACC basketball. I loved the atmosphere. I loved everything about it.
What would you say is the loudest moment that you heard in the Thriller Dome?
Probably Dennis Scott hitting that shot. There was some other ones, but I'll always remember that one because the way it came about and who it was against and everything. So, place went nuts.
And then another guy, when I was asking about the people, another guy I forgot to ask you about, who was still alive and kicking at the ripe age of, I think, 94, is Andrew Young.
Yeah, Mayor Young and I became friends. He helped me in recruiting. He talked to every one of our recruits. And he was fantastic.
Why?
I remember taking John Sally into Mayor Young's office, Mark Price, all of them. And, he had such great presence about him. And the way he spoke, he was so eloquent, the way he talked.
Are you going to be at any games this coming year? I know you're getting older, so...
Yeah, I'll get my nephew just got the head coaching job at Georgia State.
That's right.
He was on my staff at the College of Charleston, and then Mark Byington's staff at Georgia Southern, James Madison, and Vanderbilt. And he just got the Georgia State job in Atlanta. So I got to keep an eye on him, too. And John, he goes by John now. This is his first head coach he was a head coach at junior college, but this is a big step for him and a great challenge.
Georgia State's a program that I think John can really get going. I think they need more funding. I think that's why the guy prior to him failed, part of that. But I think if he can get some guys in the meantime and recruit well, I mean, that's a program. Ron Hunter really had them going.
He did. Ron did a great job there. What's tough on the new coaches, basically you come in and nobody's there. One or two kids might be left.
Yeah.
Because they all went into the portal.
That is a real issue. I think Will Wade at LSU has one guy on his roster right now.
That's impossible.
Yeah, although hilarious because the way he left NC State in the middle of the night, and I'm not even a guy who roots for NC State, but I felt bad for them. What do you want to say to Tech fans now? Just any thanks, you just sell them on the embarking of this new era. I think the timing for this interview is perfect because it's been exactly 45 years since you first got involved with Tech. And Tech has had its worst year since the year before you took over. Just final thoughts on this before we wrap up.
Yeah, well, I think that Scott Cross has a chance. I'm looking forward to watch the teams play. Tech has great fans. I think they got to make sure with the NIL that it's competitive and not at the bottom or near the bottom. Because if it's near the bottom or at the bottom, they're not going to win. They got it. It's a new era. Schools got to come up with fundraising ways. The money's there. It's in TV. But how high do you go? We can't put a cap on it. That's illegal. If we could ever put a cap on something, that would be great. Maybe an act of Congress to get that done. We can't. The schools don't want to make them employees, so we can't get that done. I'm afraid it is what it is until the bubble bursts. Until schools start, you see schools start taking non-revenue sports and eliminating them. And to me, that's very sad. Very, very sad. You see schools now saying we can't afford to have a high NIL. We're spending too much money. We're spending more than we're taking in. So we're in a danger zone right now, and it's going to be. I hope I'm still alive to see the solution of what's going to happen. I cannot picture it 5 years from now.
Yeah, it's so much happening at such a fast time. It's like the stock. It's like when a stock market crashes. It's always just so fast. It's like lightning, and that's what it's felt like the last 5 years. It's accelerated at such a ridiculous pace. Another thing I hate is these agents. these agents that are these agents that are really not experienced agents, and they're really these shady guys, and they're making these promises to these kids. It's just horrible.
It's some things are happening now, gambling, that I've never seen before. It's getting crazy out there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me for these 2 hours of your time. And I know the Tech people are going to be eager to listen to this because, of course, when people think historically of Tech basketball, you're among the first couple of names that come to mind, if not the first name. I mean, this is the equivalent of me interviewing Bobby Dodd if he was still around, because he's the first person you think of when you think of Tech football. What you did here and what you continue to do and support the program is just great. And I can't thank you enough. My dad was in school all 4 years. All 4 years when my dad was in school, you were coach, and you took Tech to the NCAA tournament. You gave him a lifetime of memories. I hope I will see the day when Tech basketball can give me some of those. Since I've been around, they've made 3 tournament appearances and have won 1 tournament game. Hasn't been easy, but I've stuck with them. Football's been able to make up for some of that.
Yep.
But it's been great to talk to you.
Well, Daniel, thank you very much. I know you love sports, and I know you have great feel for it, and I'm more than happy to talk to you.
All right. Thank you everyone for listening, and thank you, of course, to Coach Cremins for hopping onto this episode.